Welcome to Empty Nesters True Crime Podcast, where we explore chilling mysteries and dark secrets. With their nest now empty, Susan and Nancy have more time to uncover the truth and venture into the unknown. Let's step into the shadows together, shall we? Hey Nancy, how are you doing tonight?
Susan, doing good.
Oh, it's been a busy week. Yeah. Graduation went well.
Yes, it went very well. It was extremely fun graduation. I don't know if I was expecting that, but they had laser lights, fireworks, music. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I'll tell you what, UNC Carolina knows how to throw a graduation party.
Well, your pictures and your live video that you didn't know that you were taking was fabulous.
Never give an old person a cell phone. I did not. But my son grabbed my phone really quick and shut it off. But yes, thank you. It was a lot of fun. I think the class of 2020 definitely deserved a college celebration like they got. So
exactly, I agree. And tonight's drink is called the Black Widow, and that recipe will be coming out Sunday and video, which was a lot of fun making, even though we fired our producer 3 or 4 times.
And the drink is delicious, by the way. It's almost like a smoothie with a little kick.
Yes, and you're a one and done. Because that's about all your stomach can take.
It's very tasty.
Yeah. So, Nancy, have you ever wanted to kill your husband?
Well, yeah.
I have a funny story for you. So, a few years ago, probably many years ago, I was on my way to the dentist for a dental cleaning, and I was coming off the exit off the interstate, and a state trooper turns his lights on behind me, and I'm like, I wasn't speeding. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I don't know why he's pulling me over. So I came off the exit, pulled into a gas station, and he walks up to the car, and you know how they do, license and registration. And I'm like, I got my license and registration. I'm ready. And I hand it to him, and he says, do you know why I pulled you over? And I was like, I have no idea. Well, I was in Matt's car that day, and he said, well, your license plates are expired. And I said, I'm going to kill my husband.
To a police officer, Susan?
To the state trooper. And he just said, I'll be back. So he's gone. You know, they seem like they're gone forever. Mm-hmm. My cell phone's ringing. It's the dentist office. And they're like, you have a dental cleaning? Are you coming? And I'm like, yes. As soon as I get this ticket, I'll be there.
I'll be on my way.
That's right. I'm on the way. So he comes back with my ticket, and he hands me the ticket. And I look at the ticket, and I said, oh, I can't make this date. And he looks at me like, who is this woman? I said, I can't be there for this court date because that's the date that my daughter's graduating from boot camp in San Antonio. She's graduating in Air Force boot camp. I can't be there. And he looks at me and he said, well, your husband can go in your place. I said, well, he's supposed to go with me. He said, just call the office. They'll help you out. It'll be fine. He said, but somebody's going to have to go or, get the tags right. They'll probably just drop it. He said, but before you leave, I need you to make me one promise. And I'm like, okay. You cannot kill your husband. I said, okay. So he was a good sport about it. But it was, but the lady we're talking about tonight, I don't think she ever joked if she said she was going to kill one of her husbands. We're going to be talking about Della Hall. And she was born August 8th in 1950 in Kentucky. Her mother was Olga, and her father was Jim. They met while Jim was serving overseas. He was in the military. Olga's from Europe, and they moved back to the United States, and they got married. Olga didn't want to live in Kentucky. She really wanted to move to Cincinnati. So they did. They moved to Cincinnati. Jim died when Della was only 2 years old, and Jim died of cancer. A little shortly after that, Olga had married Gene Mello, and he adopted Della and Della's sister. Della's sister was just an infant when Jim passed away. Olga and Gene had a daughter together, Cheryl. That was their first child. They ended up having other children. But Della didn't like Cheryl. She threatened to smother Cheryl when Cheryl was an infant. Della would always threaten her sister Donna, which was Jim and Olga's other child, her full-blooded sister. Once there was a dead dog, and Della was like, "Come on, Donna, I want to show you something." She showed her the dead dog, and she gave Donna a stick and said, "Here, poke its eyes out, poke its eyes out." Well, Donna wasn't going to have anything to do with that. But Della took the stick and started to poke the dog's eyes.
Now, how old is Della at this time?
A child. She's a child. At the age 7, Olga woke up to Della holding scissors to her neck while she was sleeping. But Della was charming, and she could get out of trouble. And Della was a beautiful child until she got to her teen years. The teen years were not friendly to Della. She had a lot of acne. Her blonde hair was turning brown. She was just, teen years aren't friendly to a lot of teenagers. They can be. She refused to take a bath. She didn't have any friends, and the boys didn't like her. So Della, as she got older, she started to make herself up. She loved watching shows like just different like soap operas, and she wanted to be like those women in the soap operas. So at 19, Della married her first husband, Joe Hoffer. But things didn't work out with her and Joe. They were young. But they did have a daughter, Shawn. They were married for about 2 years, and they decided this just wasn't going to work out, so they got a divorce. Joe wanted Shawn, but so did Della. And back then, most 95%, 99% of the time, the mother was going to get custody of the child. Yes. So Della then just finds this guy, Jim Byer, and she marries him. So Jim Byer's husband number 2. And she has Shawn. And she's doing the family thing with Jim, and life's good for a little while, but she starts to cheat on him with her drug-dealing boyfriend, Sid. When she hooks up with Sid, she decides she doesn't want to be a mom to Shawn anymore, so she just gives Shawn to Joe and his new wife, Valerie. Eventually, that didn't work out either. Shawn went to one of the social workers at school and said, pretty much that I need help, home life sucks. So they put her into foster care. Shawn was very lucky. At 9 years old, the foster family she had went to live with adopted her, and that family eventually moved to Indiana. As the story goes on, you're going to know Shawn dodged a bullet. Maybe literally. Yes, exactly. So then there's Sid. Sid was a drug-using party boy. And at first, he said Della was a lot of fun, especially in the bedroom. But she liked to role play with Sid. And she would pretend that she was Sid's daughter. Sid didn't even have a daughter. But then, of course, Della would accuse him of cheating on her. So one night, Della came over to Sid's, and she brought a kerosene lamp. They were having a romantic night with this kerosene lamp. I don't know about you, but have you ever done... I've never incorporated a kerosene lamp, but different candles and, make a night romantic, right? Exactly. They were drinking wine and smoking pot, and they went to bed. but Della was fully clothed. Sid thought that was strange, that Della went to bed with all of her clothes on, but he was impaired. She didn't give a shit. But later, Sid woke up, and his bed was in flames, and so was Sid.
No.
Exactly. The kerosene lamp Sid found was stuffed under the blankets of the bed, along with an ashtray. So, had Sid burned up and died, they would have just said he was smoking in bed.
Wow.
And there was a bottle of whiskey on the side table, the bedside table. So, you got whiskey, you got cigarettes, and how the kerosene lamp ended up there, who the hell knows? But it was there. So tonight, I also have a little bit of a bourbon drink here. We're using bourbon. Not all whiskey is bourbon, but thank you, Nancy. So we are not just doing whiskey. We're doing bourbon. We're drinking Blanton's from Buffalo Trace, and we're drinking a BLT because we're not straight bourbon or whiskey drinking ladies. So we're gonna take a cheer for Sid later, but for now, Sid was on fire. He didn't suffer any injuries.
Thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Did that ready to go.
Right. And he confronted Della, because Della was nowhere to be found. And Sid even did a reenactment with the fire. It would take 17 minutes for that fire to catch on. That gave Della enough time to go home, see her doorman, so she had an alibi. So he says, "Hey, Della, what the hell? You caught me on fire." Exactly. Della just laughed it off and said she couldn't sleep and went home. Do you think they broke up?
I hope so. I hope he ran from her.
Nope. No, they did not break up. Then one day, when she thought Sid was cheating on her again, she came home and the house was a mess. Water was everywhere because his fish tanks were turned over. His plants were all chopped up, his TV kicked in, his iron and toaster were shoved in the toilet. He had a parrot. The parrot was gone, just gone. His wallet was stolen, and he pretty much figured Della was the culprit. Do you think they broke up?
You're going to tell me no, but I'm thinking he needs to run far away from this crazy person.
No. Then damn Della moves in with Sid.
Oh my God.
She has not even unpacked her boxes yet, and he finds the wallet that got stolen from his house during the breakup. Uh-huh. Did they break up, Nancy?
Oh my God, you're going to say no again. So we know she stole it from Mom. She set him on fire. I mean, crazy.
Batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Black Widow crazy. Well, Sid's about done, but he's not done yet. She calls the police and tells the police that Sid raped her. When they come, there's no proof that this happened. So they're like, y'all need to sort this out. Leave us out of it. So you all need to break up, move on, whatever. And he tries to break up with Della. So Della's pissed. Della does what Della does. And she calls the police about Sid having drugs. Because, yes, he was then arrested and he was put in jail for 45 days. But Sid had gotten hurt on the job and he was waiting for a work injury settlement. So Della, when they went to court for that settlement, she went and testified against Sid and said he was faking the whole injury. And Sid did end up getting a settlement, but it wasn't nearly as much as what he thought he was going to get. At this point, Sid seems to straighten up. He goes into a business with a man named Kevin, and Kevin's his business partner, and they end up doing pretty well. So this is what we're going to give a cheer to Sid, because let's wait a second, because Della's not done with Sid. So Sid and Kevin are doing their thing. They're doing really good. They would have parties at their house, and like at this point, Della's in Cincinnati, and they would have sports players from like the Bengals and the Reds would come to these parties of Sid's and Kevin's, like pretty well-to-do fellas. Della doesn't date anyone who's not well-to-do. And at one of the parties, Della shows up with a couple guys, and they rough Sid up a little bit and throw him in the pool because she said to. Oh, then after that happens, a couple weeks later, Kevin is dating Della. The business partner is dating Della. And Sid's like, dude, she's a crazy bitch. What are you doing? And Kevin, he distanced himself from Della. So Sid, he believed him. Yes. Yeah. Charming, but not that charming. So we're going to give a cheers to Sid.
Okay.
Good job, Sid.
You're saving the business.
And this BLT is for you. Woo! It's tart and tasty.
It's strong, but good.
You're a sweet lady anyway. So, this was the best we could do for you tonight, Nancy.
It was good. I would think I would like a bourbon drink, but this one's tasty.
I told Nancy the more the ice melts, the better it will be for her. Then changes her name to Dante. She wants to be called Dante because she thinks Della is an African American name. She doesn't want to have an African American name. So she calls herself Dante. And she only wants to date wealthy men. And she tells a lot of the fellas that she's dating that she would date Jerry Springer. Now, for those of you that don't know, Jerry Springer was not just a talk show host. He did a commentary for the news station in Cincinnati. He was a prominent lawyer in Cincinnati. And he was also a mayor of Cincinnati. So
He wasn't just the talk show host that most people would know him as.
exactly. He also has some scandal, but we're not here to talk about Jerry. But she would be like, if she would see Jerry on TV, she'd be like, oh, Jerry, you know that tie doesn't match your suit. And she'd be like, oh, Jerry, when I was with Jerry. Jerry Springer was asked about that if he had dated Della Dante. And we'll switch back and forth with that name. And he said he just didn't remember her. He didn't deny it, but he didn't say he did either.
He's not connecting.
Right. But Jerry, he was an interesting character himself, so he might not remember. So Della started dating a fella named Brian Papp. And she accused him of cheating, and he didn't want anything else to do with her. And he finally, because she was hounding him, he said, well, I'll meet you. So he met her, and she came in and she smelled like smoke. And he said to Della, you smell like smoke. And she said, oh, I was at a campfire. And the next day, he found out one of his houses had burnt down because he had multiple houses. And she also stole money from him. He stopped seeing her. Then she tried to tell him she was pregnant. He called her out on it. She threatened him. He recorded these threats that she was making, and then he played one back for her, and he said, I got like 10 more of these, and if you don't stop harassing me, I'm going to take it to the police. She stops. Then Della decides she needs to get away. So her sister Donna was living in Los Angeles. So Della moved in with Donna for a while. And she wouldn't work. She wouldn't clean. She wouldn't do anything to help Donna. But while in LA, she met a fellow named Terry. And they started living together. Well, it wasn't working out. So Terry said, "Hey, Della, Dante, things aren't working out. I'm going to move in with my friend, who was a woman, and until you can get out of the apartment." Well, one day when the friend's apartment was empty, Della went in and trashed the apartment. She threw paint thinner, clogged up the sinks, stole jewelry, ruined all the woman's furniture, everything. Then one day, Terry gets in his car and he almost kills himself because his brakes give out. When he went to have his car looked at the repair shop, they said somebody put motor oil in your brakes.
They were tampered with.
Yes. Donna helped recover the jewelry that Della had stolen from this woman because they were heirlooms. And Terry bought her a ticket back to Cincinnati. So Della's back in Cincinnati, where they probably really don't want her. In 1988, she meets Grant Bassett, becomes her third husband because she tells him she's pregnant. He marries her. She fakes a miscarriage. And then she tells him her back bothers her so much she needs her own bedroom. So she has her own bedroom. And he says she only wants to eat out, mostly fast food. They start to fight because she says he's cheating on her. The cops are called. She claims he raped her. Then she attacks him in the car while he's driving. This woman took their engagement ring and pawned it to get herself a facelift. And then said the doctor that did the facelift raped her. Grant wanted a divorce, but Della didn't. She left him. It was his 40th birthday. He was coming home from a work trip. Della was supposed to pick him up at the airport. She never came. So he gets a taxi. He tells the taxi cab driver, "Look, guy, I can pay you if you take me home. I have money at home." Grant gets home. House is cleaned out. Everything is gone. Taxi cab driver looks at Grant and says, "This one's on me. You got bigger problems." Then Della moves in with her brother Scott. Same thing with Donna. Wouldn't work, wouldn't clean, fought with Scott's wife all the time. Scott's like, "Della, this is not working out." So Donna came to visit from Los Angeles and she was staying with Scott. And Della just treated her like shit. So that was the final draw. Scott's like, "You got to go, Della." And she called the police on Scott and said he assaulted her because Della had a bruise on her arm that she had already had. It was an existing bruise, pre-existing. But Scott got arrested. Later, the charges were dropped, but Scott never talked to her again.
So she always made herself the victim.
Definitely. She's the victim. She got a boyfriend, Jeff. They met on a dating site. They decided they were going to take a trip to California, but the trip was so terrible that Jeff began to have second thoughts. They went to Napa, to wineries, and she got totally drunk and was rude to everyone. She told him the hotels were not good enough for her that he had booked and made him get different hotels. They were supposed to share in the driving in this trip to California. She said, "Oh, I can't drive. My license have expired." She didn't offer to pay for anything. And at that time, she was kind of working as a secretary. Mm-hmm. And when she returned back to Cincinnati, she quit her job as a secretary, expected Jeff to support her 100%. And she would drink all day, and she'd call him at work while she was drunk. And then she said, "Oh, Jeff, I'm pregnant." Oh, yeah. He agreed to meet with her, and he told her, "You can keep this baby, and I'll support this baby, but we are not going to be in a relationship." And he gave her money for an abortion. And then one night, she comes over and she tells him she didn't take the money for the abortion. And she gets in her purse and she pulls out a .22 revolver and it's in her hand. Jeff calls the police. She does get charged with a terrorist threat and she gets put on probation.
Now, is this the first time she's ever gotten charged with anything with all of her crazy stuff?
Yes. But no baby ever came of that, so. David Britton. He's her fourth husband. When they filled out the marriage license, where he thought Della was about 6 years younger than him, she was, or older than him, she was 12 years older than him.
Well, her age.
Mm-hmm.
But she got
Exactly.
that facelift, remember? So maybe that's why she's looking a little bit younger to these men.
She said multiple facelifts, actually. She told him David Britton never wanted children, never wanted to get married. He was from England and he really wanted a green card. So she said, David, I'm pregnant. And if you marry me, I'll have an abortion. If you don't, you'll owe me 18 years of child support. Well, David's like, really need this green card. So he married her. And they did have to move to Kansas City for a little while because he had an assignment there for work. Mm. And when they were in Kansas City, things were great. But once they moved back to Cincinnati, she would call him 30 times a day. He would go golfing with his friends and she'd just show up and they'd be like, dude, is that your wife? And he'd be like, yeah, just ignore her. She was spending money like crazy. She got another facelift. She refused to work and clean. David said he had planned out killing her. He hated her so much, but he really wanted that damn green card. Yeah, he got his green card. She ended up calling the police on David, and which is what she does, and he did spend the night in jail. And one night, she pulled a gun on him, and he got it away from her. And then he made sure he went through the whole house and took all the bullets, and hid them so she didn't have any bullets. And then another night, she took her gun out and she fired it at him. But there weren't any bullets in it. And she was like, where's the bullets?
She thought they were the bullets.
She thought it was a loaded gun. And she was gonna kill him.
She didn't know he took those bullets out. Mm.
Yep.
She is crazy.
And and then she filed another police report on him with false claims. He was arrested. He went to jail, spent the night in jail, and when he got out of jail, he came home and everything was gone. All the furniture, everything. And she left his clothes, but she left them cut up. Then Della starts to date Daryl, husband number 5. And Della Sutorius was a large man. He was a height of 6'3". Della was a tiny woman. He was overweight and he was 55 years old. He loved golf. He loved to go to golfing trips to Hilton Head. And he spent a lot of the happiest days of his life. He was also a well-known heart surgeon. Daryl could be verbally abusive to the staff at the hospital. He worked at Bethesda North Hospital. And he was hated by a lot of people in the medical community. A lot of people didn't want to work with him because he was so hard to work with, but he was a perfectionist. Daryl had been married to his wife, Jan. They had been married for like 30 years, had 4 children, and they had recently divorced. Deborah was one of his daughters, and she had really taken care of her dad through the divorce with her mother. Until he started dating Lisa. Lisa was 20 years younger than Daryl. Mm. Deborah felt like Lisa was just after her father's money. Lisa quickly moved in with Daryl. She had 2 preteen children. Deborah just decided that if she wanted a relationship with her dad, she'd have to have a relationship with Lisa. So she did the best she could. Then Lisa started pressuring Daryl into marriage. And in one breath, Daryl would complain about money to Jan, but Jan would find out all the lavish gifts that he was spending on Lisa, like Caribbean vacations and expensive clothing and jewelry. He was just flooding her with gifts. Exactly. Because Daryl didn't want to be alone. And he did have some psychiatric problems. He battled with depression. He did have suicidal thoughts. So Daryl asked Lisa to marry him. And they got engaged. But he needed her to sign a prenup because he didn't want to go through having to pay, because he was paying alimony to Jan. Mm-hmm. And he had 3 children in college. And the 4th one on the way.
We know that's expensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Lisa refused. She returned the engagement ring he had given to her. They were still living together, but this made Deborah, his daughter, Daryl's daughter, really happy. But her father was devastated. And Daryl confided to Deborah, he said, I think Lisa's seeing an ex-boyfriend of hers. The ex-boyfriend was 25 years old. So Deborah's like we would be. Let's go find out.
We're going.
Let's get in the car and go see. So they did, and Lisa's car was in the fella's driveway. Yeah, it was a blow. So Daryl was furious. He told Lisa to get out. She refused. He ended up paying her a settlement to get out of his life. Lisa did try to get back with Daryl, but he was already in a relationship with Dante Britt, who we know as Della. Yeah. Daryl just thought, she's more my age. She told Dara she was educated from UCLA. She was independent and financially well off. Dante was always put together. She looked like something that walked off a fashion magazine. Her makeup was always perfect. Her skin was flawless. She was so well educated. A few months after dating Daryl, gave Dante a Lexus. I don't know about you. Matt didn't give me a Lexus.
I never got a Lexus. I didn't get no facelift, and I didn't get no... She's getting a lot of stuff from these men.
Exactly. I didn't get a car at all. So Daryl bought Dante a ranch-style house, Sims Ridge. It's in Cincinnati, Ohio.
This is your home?
It is. A few days before they married, they got married at a Justice of the Peace in Covington, Kentucky, which is right over the river. Yep. And they honeymooned in Hilton Head. Daryl would buy Dante expensive gifts, like a Mediterranean cruise. I didn't get one of those either. Mink coats. Me neither. I don't want a real mink coat, but some Gucci sunglasses would be nice. Jewelry, Armani suits, Gucci. And she only drove the finest cars. Of course, she had her Lexus, but she would also be seen driving Daryl's Jaguar.
Susan, we would look cute in a Jaguar, I'm just saying.
I mean, we would. But we don't have a Jaguar. I mean, he's dating her a couple months and buys her a damn Lexus. He treated her like royalty, and she acted like royalty. So their neighborhood was upscale, and they had a ranch-style home, and Dante spent time hiring decorators and contractors to renovate the place. Antiques were arriving daily to the Sutorius home, but Dante told Daryl, because she has this back pain, and she needs her own room. So she calls her room the princess room. She has her own room. She needed privacy so that she could smoke cigarettes, light candles, and drink Royal Crown. And tensions started. They soon began, weeks after the marriage. Because Deborah, the daughter, became engaged. And Dante said Deborah was being a bitch to her and wouldn't even get to know her. And Dante started listening to Deborah and Daryl's phone calls. And at one time she told Deborah, don't ever call this house again. There'd be times that Daryl would be seen sweating and working in the yard, and Della was sitting perfectly dressed, like a Carrington off a Dynasty, with not a hair out of place, sipping iced tea, just watching Daryl work out in the yard. Daryl did have financial issues, because I told you, he has 3 kids in college, a 4th one coming up. He's paying alimony to Jan. I mean...
I think, and spending way too much on her.
Oh, way too. Daryl loved to spend his money. So, because he did the same thing to Lisa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there was also, which I'm not real familiar with, but an HMO backlash. So HMOs were starting, so surgeons were making less money.
Right.
And on top of that, science was changing. The field of surgery, heart surgery especially, was evolving. And he was being squeezed out by younger surgeons with top medical training. And Daryl liked nice things. Daryl was living way above his means. And now Deborah, his daughter, is engaged. And Daryl wants his adult daughter to have the wedding of her dreams. But Dante wasn't having it. No, no, no. She didn't want Daryl to pay for that wedding at all. She thought Deborah should do it on her own. And Deborah was fighting that she wanted a decent wedding, while Dante was doing everything in her power to keep Daryl away from her. Where Deborah and Daryl were extremely close, and Deborah was his favorite child, it seemed like that was kind of there was a rift. Mm-hmm. So Dante has this friend named Beth. She befriends this lady in the neighborhood, Beth. And Beth had met Dante because she was in the medical field herself and she knew Daryl. And one day they met at TGIF. TGIF? Fridays.
Thank God it's Friday.
Yeah. So Beth had watched a gentleman give his business card to Dante when she went to the restroom, and it said, "Call me." Once back at the table, she told Beth, "Oh, he's not fat like Daryl, so if I sleep with him, at least I wouldn't be suffocated in bed." And Daryl wouldn't have liked it either, but Beth didn't like it. She did not like it even if it was innocent flirting. I mean, these are newlyweds.
Right.
So later, Daryl. Later, Dante would confide to Beth that she did meet the man for lunch, and she would continue to make little remarks about cheating on Daryl. And during the Christmas holidays, Daryl's children were not invited to the Sutorius home, but Dante's family was coming so Della could show off her beautiful home. Really, all she wanted to do was make her family feel bad because they weren't as privileged as Dante. Cheryl, one of Dante's sisters, tried to talk to Dante about the rift she was putting between Daryl and his children, and Dante didn't want to hear any of it. She just wanted to bitch about Deborah's wedding and that Daryl said he would pay for it.
Yeah.
No, she wants more mink coats and Gucci and Armani suits. During the Christmas, Dante treated Cheryl like everyone else. She belittled her, told her that her new home, Cheryl's new home, wasn't as nice as her home and was poorly constructed, and she wasn't as upscale as Dante. But Cheryl was happy. She was a happily married woman with 4 kids. She didn't want all those flashy things. She didn't need all that to make her happy. Another time, Dante took her younger sister, Nikki, to the Nutcracker at the Aronoff Center. And I've been there. So, yeah. I've been there to see Phantom of the Opera many, many moons ago. Fancy for a night. Afterwards, Dante wanted to take Nikki to a party in Indian Hill. And Indian Hill is a very posh neighborhood in Cincinnati. The wealthy live there. Nikki didn't want to go because she felt underdressed, but Dante said, "Oh, you're dressed fine. Even if those shoes are from Payless," which I'm sure they are, they don't look like it. And they went to the party, and Dante quickly got intoxicated and was hanging all over Daryl, and it embarrassed Nikki. But things with Daryl and Dante got really bad. She went to his office and was rummaging through his files, his schedule, and when she was confronted with it, she said, "But Daryl, I wasn't being nosy. I was trying to plan you a Christmas vacation, I was looking at your schedule." No, Dante was seeing if Deborah was talking to Daryl or if he was meeting Deborah.
Behind her back that she didn't know about.
Right. So Christmas comes. Daryl gives Dante a 3-carat tennis bracelet and a Mediterranean cruise.
Did you get those gifts, Susan? No, me neither.
No. But Della, she was pissed because she said that 3-carat bracelet should have been 5. And she was talking about taking the bracelet back.
Oh, she's really living the high life. And then some.
And then some. So Daryl starts investigating Dante's past by speaking to her mother, Olga. He's speaking to Olga. He's speaking to ex-husbands, etc. He found out that Dante had no money. She never went to UCLA because she never graduated high school. Dante told Daryl she had only been married twice. And he found out he was husband number 5. He also did find out a little earlier that Dante did have a daughter, but she never told him she was a grandmother. So Sean has had children. Daryl, whatever was going inside them walls of that house, Daryl starts wearing a bulletproof vest, and not only does he wear it at home, he wears it at the hospital. They see this surgeon come in and he's wearing a bulletproof vest.
So scary.
Yeah. And people that work with him are concerned. They are very concerned for Daryl. He hired a divorce attorney. Daryl was really afraid of Dante. She had threatened to ruin his career, his reputation. She threatened to turn him into the IRS. She was going to tell everyone about his impotence issues, which he did have. Daryl found Daryl broke into her bedroom because she would keep her bedroom bolted locked. And he broke in there just to look around. And he found a .22 revolver. He took it and turned it into the police. He took it out of the house. He was like, "No, ma'am. No, ma'am." Well, on a Monday, the hospital had been trying to get a hold of Daryl. They had an emergency with one of his patients, and it was not like they could page Daryl, or if they called Daryl, he answered. But Daryl was MIA. So the office eventually called 911 because they wanted the police to do a welfare check on the Sutorius home. 9:38, February 19th, 1996, Corporal Greg Huber arrived at the Sutorius home. His supervisor, Sergeant Zollner, met him there, and they went to the front door. Dante opened the door. While holding her small dog, Teddy, she seemed dazed and confused. The officers asked her if her husband was home, and she said no. The officers asked her to check and see if his car was there. She checked and said, "Oh, it is in the garage." But they already knew, because I guess there was windows. You know how some garage doors have windows? So they already knew his Jaguar was in the garage. They already knew he was there. And they asked if they could come in and check the garage and see if the car was warm. And so she let the officers in. And while they were checking the garage, checking the car, they heard a scream from Dante. They went in the house, and when they approached the top of the basement steps, they were hit with the smell of decomposing flesh. They found Dante standing over Daryl, and Daryl had been shot in the head with a revolver, and the revolver was on the floor next to his body. Dante began screaming for her husband to wake up. "Wake up, Daryl, wake up." So it was chaos, And the Hamilton County coroner, Dr. Carl Parrott, secured the scene and discovered this was not the typical suicide because it looked like suicide.
Trying to make it look like he just committed suicide.
2 shots had been fired, one in the doctor's head and one on the couch. Dr. Parrott was questioning the shot he found, but there was also blood smeared on the couch. Dante was taken to the police station for routine questioning. Her friend Beth went with her, and when they were in the interrogation room, Dante asked Beth why there were straps on the chair. Beth told her she believed that was for a lie detector, and Dante said, "Oh, I'm not doing one of those." Dante was questioned for 6 hours. Law enforcement even asked her if she killed her husband, and she said no, and then she requested an attorney. At the time, she was arrested because when they did a search of the house, they found cocaine in her bedroom in a small metal box. She claimed it wasn't hers, but an old boyfriend's. She did make bail. She was free for about 7 days, but then she was soon arrested for the murder of Della Sutorius. It's big news in Cincinnati. At the trial, the prosecution revealed that this was not Della's first time for violence. Actually, she had a long history of violent behavior, which we've talked about. She stated she went to UCLA. In fact, she never finished high school. She claimed to own a daycare, and she's never had a steady job in her life. Ex-husbands and boyfriends would testify against Della. Della just could not stand rejection and always wanted things to be her way. She only wanted wealthy men for their money. Olga, her mother, even testified against Della. It's terrible. Della never took the stand. On June 7, 1996, after less than 5 hours of deliberating, Della Dante Sutorius was found guilty of aggravated murder, use of a gun, of violence, and drug possession. She was sentenced to 23 years in prison by Judge Richard Neese, and it was the maximum sentence he could give her. The media portrays her as the Black Widow. On November 20th, 2010, at the age of 60, while incarcerated, Della Dante Sutorius died of natural causes. Probably died because she didn't have her Gucci. Her Migos.
We're terrible, Susan. I was just thinking about the court when all those people got together. Would you have loved to have been sitting out there, or if we were on that jury?
I lived there then. I would have loved to have gone and sit in those courtrooms. Those courtrooms are humongous. They're just huge. Well, I a little bit. And when Aphrodite Jones wrote the book Della's Web, and I read the book, and I told my grandmother, I said, "Grandma, have you heard about this Della Sutorius? She killed that heart doctor, and have you heard of her?" And my grandma said, "Yeah, that bitch killed my heart doctor."
Her heart doctor. Oh.
She said, "I had to go find a new heart doctor, and I really liked him." So it's terrible. It's sad. It's awful. But that's the story of
So
Della.
you said that was the max she could get was 23 years. Okay.
Yep. That was the maximum sentence she could have gotten. Yep.
She died at 67.
Yeah, she died in prison.
Yeah.
I mean, she didn't. Yeah. I guess she couldn't handle prison.
Now, how old was she when she went to prison? I was trying to do the math in my head here. What year?
That's a good question. Let's see. She was born in 1950. I think that's right. I'm pulling it up. Yeah, 1950. And she died in 2010. So she was in prison. She went to in 96. So not long, 14 years.
Maybe she couldn't handle a person life. I think you're right. She didn't have all of her high-end stuff.
Yeah, they say natural causes, but I mean, who knows? They did say one thing about Daryl, because I made him look just like he was so terrible to work with, but that he could also be good to the people he worked with. Like, he would bring them, like, pastries, he'd remember birthdays. One time, the microwave broke in the nurse's lounge, and the hospital couldn't do the budget to give him another microwave, so he bought him a microwave. So, he was gruff, but he was a little bit of a softie as well.
I think a lot of people have that side they come across, and then people take it the wrong way.
Yep.
Come across very straightforward. That's what I was trying to say. They come across very straightforward, and then, people just get a different opinion. But obviously, I'm sure he was a great guy. Your grandma liked him. I mean,
well, she was mean too. So, I mean,
well, maybe she also was straightforward.
But when you have to think this man was a heart surgeon. You can only have perfection. You can't mess that up. So I get it. So, but it's a shame for his family. And Jan, I believe during the trial, really came in as an advocate for Daryl. And she, at one point, and I'm not real sure what happened with the body, but Dante wanted the body cremated. Of course she did. And Jan was like, oh no, we're not doing that. We're not.
Did he ever make the daughter's wedding? Did he die before that wedding?
I think he died before the wedding. Not 100% sure. I don't know. They were not married long enough. They were not married long enough
I hate the fact that she came between.
I mean,
the daughter and dad. They saw like they had a close relationship, and then the dad was just trying to keep her happy. And
if they were together even a year, it was fast.
Yeah. Oh, she works quick.
Yeah, quick.
But imagine all the ex coming together for this, and everybody telling their story.
Mm-hmm. But I think it shows too that domestic violence is not just a female issue. There are men of domestic violence.
Absolutely, and it's not out there like it should be. I think there's two spectrums. One, maybe sometimes men don't want to come forward with it, and two, they're not always believed.
Exactly. And I mean, if you're a man, you want to be a manly man. Can this little 119-pound woman be when you're over 200 pounds and 6'3"? Is she abusing you? Come on. Who's going to believe that?
Right. But we all know abuse is many different ways, not always just physical, but mental. And
yeah.
That's a good point, Susan, to advocate that for men to be okay to speak out and, get the word out there.
Yep. Use your voice. And even if they don't believe you, at least it was documented. Document. Because if you document it, and maybe the next guy she gets with, at least there's a paper trail.
So that's what I was thinking in the beginning. Were these people, were they telling the police, that's Susan's drink, by the way, were the people telling the police everything she's doing, or they just chalk it up and move along?
It sounded to me a lot of them were just chalking it up and moving along.
Like, did he ever report that, oh, she set the bed on fire?
Yeah, I don't know. And Sid is a pseudonym. His name is not Sid. Aphrodite Jones changed his name in the book, but Sid knows who he is.
Oh, his real name's not Sid.
No, there was a few names that were changed.
That's okay. Keep privacy. Nothing wrong with that. Doesn't affect the story.
No, but that's how shameful that is. That please don't use my name. I want to know that some bitch caught me on fire. I want to,
It sounds like she was crazy, but I'm glad the guys that got her out of their life, I'm glad they were able to do that. But unfortunately, Daryl didn't have as good of an outcome.
Yeah, Daryl didn't make it.
Thanks for joining us on Empty Nesters True Crime Podcast, where we've delved into chilling mysteries and dark secrets. With their nest now empty, Susan and Nancy will keep uncovering the truth and venturing into the unknown. Until next time, stay safe and step into the shadows with us again.